the award-winning Living Canvas video collection, produced by the Greenwich Workshop, brings to life real stories, moments, people, and history, represented in images painted by our contemporary artists. Fighter aces of the Royal Air Force in Frank Wooten's Odlertog, and Sacred Lands of the Blackfeet Tribe in Howard Turpning's The Storyteller. Castles and fairy gardens welcome James Christensen in The Art of Imagination. The family of Living Canvas video productions entertains and informs. Art presented as never before, taking you to the source of inspiration, real life. Coming this fall, the Greenwich Workshop's new Living Canvas production about the attacks on Pearl Harbor and, hours later, on Clark Field in the Philippines, leading the United States into World War II. For more information on Greenwich Workshop video products, contact your authorized Greenwich Workshop dealer. A Living Canvas collection display video is available to screen upon request. The following project is benefiting the cause of conservation education by contributing partial proceeds from each purchase of Bev Doolittle's personal commission print, Sacred Circle, to the National Wildlife Federation and the Canadian Wildlife Federation.
Hello, I'm Jay Hare, President of the National Wildlife Federation, and this is Colin Maxwell, Executive Vice President of the Canadian Wildlife Federation. We're very pleased and proud to be part of Bev Doolittle's Sacred Circle and to have the opportunity to carry this conservation philosophy to our millions of members and friends. Thank you for making a difference, for supporting us in this beautiful and unique way.
We are non-governmental, non-profit conservation education organizations acting on behalf of the wise use of our natural resources upon which our very lives depend. The soil, the air, the water, the forests, the minerals, the plant life, and the wildlife.
We work in the classroom and the courtroom with media and with business, government, and industry.
Through research, environmental programs, publications, and endowments, we have pledged to achieve balanced conservation goals.
We're all part of the sacred circle of life and are grateful to be able to work on behalf of the environment with Bev Doolittle and the Greenwich Workshop. We invite you to join us.
The Greenwich Workshop presents the interaction between life and art. Intimate perspectives from the palette of the living canvas.
It's hard for me to put into words the things that I feel about being out there. You know, I wish I were a poet, but I'm not. I have to do it through, in a visual way, through my paintings. There's a solitude, a feeling of being alone, being the only one out there, being the first one to discover something. Like being the first pioneer to come west, and if you don't see a human footprint, that's great. That's what I want to see, just animal footprints. And I think the more that we blend into nature and become a part of nature, the more unified we become, I think the better off we're all going to be. And the Indians fit right in because of their relationship to nature, and I use the American Indian as a representation of man and how he sees things. The story of the Sacred Circle is the story of life, death, birth, understanding, and wisdom. It is the cycle of all things in the universe, the grand design of how life works. No beginning, no end, the eternal continuity of life.
Hey, 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 hey.
Only man has yet to learn what all other creatures know about the delicate balance of nature. We must learn from the harmony and unity of nature to appreciate life and to protect it, always, all life, everywhere. All life is sacred. When I painted Sacred Circle, it meant a lot to me to be able to make my most important statement about the environment. But when we set out to film this documentary, I had no idea how much I had yet to learn about ecology. It's one thing to research, design, and paint a painting like Sacred Circle, but another entirely to live it out there in places where man and nature must try to coexist. Bigger, so. Oh, yeah.
There's several in there.
Oh, look at it. We traveled to Virginia, Montana, Wyoming, and Minnesota to visit with those charged with the ultimate effort of safeguarding our environment and protecting our wildlife and educating us, the public, in time to preserve our own future. Their objective is a stronger commitment from all of us to share in the conservation of our precious natural treasures while they are still here to inspire us and to enjoy.
So what happened here is that the grasses actually came back in the fall of the same year of the fires. And then the following year, we had just an explosion of wildflowers like we see here.
My print, Sacred Circle, asks only that you take the time to evaluate your own personal priorities and then participate in guaranteeing the preservation of our beautiful earth.
Among the natives, the Eskimos, they used to carve bones from animals, and while they're carving, they spoke to the spirit of that animal, please guide me so that people will appreciate you. What I'm trying to present to the world, what you are, what you represent, talking all the time as they carved. When we make a kill, we had an understanding with our animal kingdom. Our people, long time ago, said they used to speak to animals so that they would give us their lives to sustain our lives, and in time we would give up our bodies, from which will grow things that their families might feed upon and sustain life, a cycle in that way. My name is Marcellus Bear Hart Williams. To pronounce my full name in my tribal name is Nokoshvigi Imalti Dastanagi.
Bearheart is a man with a deep spiritual relationship with the land. He joins us on this journey to help us understand man and nature's unique interdependence. A Muskogee Creek holy man whose values and wisdom will be our guide, Bearheart will recount the meanings of animal spirits, which gave his people the strength and knowledge they depended upon to live.
Our heritage of the Native Americans never looked up nor looked down upon nature. They were taught to feel as a part of nature. To feel a part of nature was not only in the plant life, but animal, the birds, those that live in the waters and those that crawl upon the land. All living things were our relatives. Today we look around, even our air is becoming polluted. Our streams are becoming polluted. What is our future? I think the challenge before each one is to become better caretakers of the land, our environment, if nothing more, than the survival of all life upon this planet.
Obviously, the Native Americans and bears coexisted for thousands of years. There seemed to be more of a mutual coexistence and certainly respect on the Native Americans' part. I think that's sort of the ideal we would like to get back to an appreciation and an understanding of grizzly bears in particular, because it's really going to depend upon our ability to respect their needs and requirements if we're going to coexist into the future. Of course, they went on to feed their young.
Steve and Marilyn French are independent grizzly bear researchers, 9 years into an ambitious 30-year study in and around Yellowstone National Park. It is the longest natural history evaluation of this magnificent mammal ever attempted in the world, and also examines its habitat requirements and the impact of human encroachment. With over 3,000 hours a year of visual contact, including observing 200 predation events, they are eyewitnesses to both the grizzly's recent recovery and its uncertain chances for survival. It was special for me to be led through the diverse and enchanting backyard of a grizzly home range.
I think probably one of the most important things for people coming into the park is to recognize that, no, they may not see a grizzly bear. Seeing grizzly bears requires a lot of patience. It requires being able to get up early and stay up late, be cold, wet, and hungry and not complain. But when you do see a grizzly bear, you won't be disappointed.
Civilization is just over there in mass. We got bear country right here. And any place from here on out, we can bump into bears, okay?
We've got 2 family groups we know of back in here. And we know one of the family groups has been out near this area. And so if we're quiet, you know, we have a good chance of seeing them. So
until you see one really close like this, it's hard to imagine where you're walking through here that you can have bears. We're going to be looking very carefully and quietly as we walk through here. If we perchance had a close encounter, in other words, if we have a bear that's very close, the most important thing to do is, number one, we all stay together. Don't scream or yell, and we'll stand our ground. And
no sudden movements is important.
Don't try to run.
Don't communicate between anyone else?
I'll probably be talking and telling, you know, probably just describing what the bear is doing if that happens, and that'll be sufficient. Nobody has to yell or scream. And if the bear ran at us, it's very unlikely with us that he would. There's enough of us. But if the bear did come at us, we still stand our ground unless I said go down. Okay. And all I want you to do is just interlock your fingers behind your neck, cover your elbows over your face, and go to the ground. And stay down till I say get up.
I'm sure we will.
Okay, Captain. Steve is a medical doctor, the head of emergency services at his hometown hospital in Evanston, Wyoming. He originally became interested in grizzlies while treating those who unfortunately had run-ins with bears. Marilyn is a surgical nurse who was attracted to grizzly country after growing up in an area where land was the target of constant development, not the concern of conservation. We're seeing a part of Yellowstone where few people ever venture. Just a short distance from the public boardwalks and you are in bear habitat. A fresh bear footprint sends your eyes darting from side to side. My husband Jay and son Jason were studying the ground for tracks. One is truly alive in bear country.
You know, a lot of organizations and government agencies have worked for years trying to educate the public on how to save the grizzly. You see, our role is to try to teach people what it is they're trying to save.
You see anything down in here? Baby bear cub right here. There's her back foot, and here's the front foot.
Oh, look at that.
There's a little pad. They have a little tiny proximal pad that's right here. Their big toe is on the outside of their foot.
Right.
Where ours is on the inside. Yeah. And so you can tell whether you've got your right or left feet.
Probably standing.
It's actually about, on that one, it's about, right at 3.5.
Is it a bigger cub or is it
No.
Just
just the mud, yeah.
These are cubs here. Now where's the mothers?
Mud Volcano is a wonderfully mysterious, almost evil hydrothermal area where the smell of rotten eggs filled the misty air. Cauldrons of thick, hot mud bubbled in unpredictable rhythms, created as clay particles are pulled from hot lava rock below. This food-rich, warm spring surrounded by woods is a favorite bear passage.
In our work, it's mostly observational work where we will make direct observations of bears. It's kind of a quiet research. It's hands-off, and we want to get the grizzly reacting to its environment, not necessarily to people or us. So we try not to make contact, but to observe from, distances away. And the more we learn, the more questions we have about grizzly bears. So much of what we learned in days when they were feeding and congregated at the garbage dumps isn't necessarily what's holding true today with the dispersed current population here in Yellowstone. We have bears making the transition from feeding on garbage back to natural food sources that their ancestors once fed on. We have bears feeding on elk calves, which is a valuable and important springtime food source for grizzly bears here. We also have bears feeding on the spawning cutthroat trout, which at one time the populations of trout here in Yellowstone were near a collapsed state.
In other words, they're acting more like grizzly bears once again and not just wallowing around in our garbage.
The Frenches have seen enough to know that the bear knows how to live, how to adapt, and survive when given the chance. The bear also knows how to be a bear.
If you're a cub in Yellowstone, it's probably play and enjoyment. They have mom to take care of them and feed them, and it's pretty much fun. If you're a teenage bear or a subadult in Yellowstone, I think you're probably pretty wired. Yeah. You've just stepped out of mom's shadow and you're on your own for the first time, and everything's kind of scary, just like it is for teenage kids. And I think for mating pairs, I think this is one of the only times that these two bears can travel again together, other than if it's a female with family groups. Adult males, I think, probably go through the environment in a little bit different manner. They're the king of the hill, and they do a lot of long-distance traveling, and they walk with authority. When you see them, you know that what you're looking at immediately.
You can focus here in the center.
Okay.
That is huge velvet.
Yeah.
As we continued on, I felt like a tourist looking for famous celebrities. There was so much of life to see in the wild, even when the wild was calm.
Oh, that's so neat, the way the steam just loses her completely.
Suddenly, we heard approaching thunder. As we paused to let the gentle rain pass, I realized what a special place this is, grizzly country, and knowing he's out there wild and hungry at the top of the food chain, and we're here with him. Still, Yellowstone is one of the last places in the lower 48 states where grizzlies still survive. Fewer than 1,000 grizzlies roam free, and in this greater Yellowstone ecosystem, there are only 200 to 300. That's just not enough. And despite the available natural foods and relative solitude of this habitat, there is always one constant worry.
I think probably one of the most important things for the grizzly bears here is to be able to hold on to the land that we currently have. There's no question that bears can make it right now on what we have, but if we continue to have human encroachment from the outside areas as well as from inside, it's going to come to the point where we will be at a crisis again. The future of the grizzly, it's going to be a rough road. We lose places like this and this kind of habitat. We may not get another chance. I think one of the things that we have them here now, and we really should make the most of it.
There's a special magic about a place like this, knowing that there's grizzly bears out there. Even if we don't see the grizzly, just knowing it's there gives you a different sense and a different feel, an opportunity to really feel emotionally intact with all the elements of life. And as we've seen today, there's magic even without the bear here. Some of the discoveries we make is similar to, when people see one of your paintings, they discover, you engage them to discover, and yet we've also discovered it's just out there naturally for you. The grizzly bear in the Yellowstone ecosystem will not succumb to a catastrophic event. It will, if it does perish, it will perish from the accumulation of small but seemingly insignificant developments that occur over years. In other words, the grizzly bear will probably die a death of 1,000 cuts, and therein lies a problem. How do you make people appreciate that just taking 4 or 5 acres out of the grizzly bear habitat is significant?
It's hard to believe in a land this vast, not having enough of it to live, but that's the case for the grizzly. We next set out to find a den site where bears have hibernated during winter. Dens are as high as 9,000 feet. We seem to be climbing forever. I was beginning to realize what living within a 450,000-acre habitat was like. Is it possible we were covering all of it?
But very few people have actually been in a den, so you've got to take advantage of the opportunity.
Who goes in first?
Start down there under the light.
Okay. You go in first? I'll go in second.
All right. All this that you're standing on is the front porch, what we call the front porch. And occasionally in the wintertime, they'll wake up and come out and sit on the porch.
You just hold it on?
There.
Oh, yeah, okay.
While they're in their den, you know, they spend upwards 5, sometimes 6 months in the den, and pretty remarkable that during that time, here's a large mammal, you know, much bigger than humans, and they don't eat or drink.
They don't starve or become dehydrated. And you think about if we didn't go to the bathroom for 6 months, you know, they just aren't affected by the buildup of those poisonous waste products.
Figure out, do you have any theories about that?
I think
What happens?
we know what happens. How it happens, we don't know. We'll probably never really know. I think they're metabolic marvels. To be able to do that, to undergo a sustained period without food or water, and yet they only burn primarily their fat stores and come out with essentially no loss of muscle mass and no loss of bone mass.
While the grizzly sleeps 1/3 of the year, its habitat has shrunk to less than 2% of its original range. 60% of what habitat is available may become commercially developed, even further displacing the grizzly. The French has also found new evidence that contaminants seem to be invading the grizzly range. Thousands of moths with nutritional value are being devoured by bears in high alpine regions and may be contaminated by pesticides including DDT. As more is learned about the grizzly, there is more to do for the grizzly. Perhaps much of it we do for ourselves.
And when you think about it, probably the most noble treasure that we can leave our children and their children is grizzly country. I certainly wouldn't want to be around to explain to them why we let it die off. I don't think I could possibly relate what it meant to have grizzly country and what it was like and what they're missing. It would be beyond me to describe that. Nor would I have a valid excuse for saying that we failed in our mission.
We didn't see a bear on this day. I would have liked to, but that didn't diminish my enthusiasm for grizzly country. Marilyn and Steve's Yellowstone Grizzly Foundation works very hard to protect the grizzly, the physical and spiritual symbol of the wildness that remains in the Yellowstone ecosystem. The grizzly doesn't need to be seen. It just needs to be saved.
During my vision quest, I was confronted by a bear. And he seemed to want to attack because he stood up on his hind legs. I've been told to talk to my father, so I did in my own language. I told him that if it was his wish to put his mark on me, and however he wanted, it was up to him. That I respected him as my father. I would not fight him. He seemed to listen to it. And then he turned around and walked away. And so there are many kinds of bears. They're not too many, not like they used to be. But what there are of the bears in our country today, can we not allow them this space where they can roam freely and to enjoy their right to live among all living things?
Over 100 of these magnificent birds spend the summer here along the banks of the James River. They roost along these tall trees, the hardwoods. It's the largest roost, in fact, east of the Mississippi River.
Ed Clark is a wildlife conservation educator and a raptor specialist. He hosts his own public television nature program, Virginia Outdoors. He travels frequently to advise the public and their lawmakers how to contribute to the successful protection of their environment and the animals that live there. Much of his time is spent here on the historic James River, looking after the interests of the bald eagle sanctuary and fighting for habitat security and a healthy waterway. To improve this environment and understand how human activity impacts wildlife, Clark founded and directs the Wildlife Center of Virginia, a unique, nonprofit, professionally staffed hospital for sick, injured, and orphaned native wildlife. This year alone, the center will see about 2,000 wild animals representing over 150 species.
What we are seeing is essentially a slice of the ecosystem. We are seeing organisms that are at all levels of the food chain, predators and prey. And we are seeing every range of problems that humans can bring to bear on wildlife. By accident, we discovered that one of the bald eagles that we had treated that had been struck by an automobile had also suffered a pesticide poisoning. And we began to wonder whether there was a cause and effect there. So we went back to our records, back to the blood work we had done on these animals to measure their blood enzymes, and we found a very startling relationship between pesticide exposure and traumatic injury. And in every case that we have seen a bald eagle struck by a car or a truck, we have found that that bird's central nervous system had been affected first and foremost by some exposure to a toxin. It causes problems for wildlife that contribute to secondary problems which can be fatal, such as automobile collision, or perhaps just not being able to get away from their own predators, or not being able to do the types of things that they need to do in order to function and survive in the environment. Being off just a small percentage of their skills may prevent that bald eagle from catching a fish, from catching the type of food that it needs to feed its young. And those very, very subtle differences in natural balance can create tremendous devastation among the populations that are there.
He's being so generous with his mouth open. We'll look at that. You can see the opening into his lungs right behind the tongue. And we've seen research or documentation that in some instances 800 to 1,000 birds are killed in a field after some of these pesticides are applied. On any given day, I may handle 15 or 20 different species of animals. The one common denominator is that they've all come in contact with humans, either coming in contact with their cars or their buildings or their poisons or their cats or their dogs. And essentially we take the animals that come in here and we try to repair them to the point where they can be returned to the wild in order that they might survive.
One of the things that amazes me about this place here is the dedication and the time that they spent, rehabilitating these birds and in order to put them back out into the wilderness. And to be able to see the evidence here of the different animals and how they progress. It's just amazing. I've never really been this close to some of these raptors, and it's just awesome to be able to see them and to see them getting better, and in all different stages of whatever injuries that they have, seeing them progress, and it's really heartening to see this. Also, it's sad to see the birds that will never leave this kind of environment, that they're never going to be able to be released into the wilderness because they've been injured beyond repair. And the stories that they have to tell about some of the disgusting things that have happened that people do to the animals unknowingly and knowingly. It really sinks home. It must be a real heartbreak for you to see
you know, a dead animal like this come in, and especially after you spend as long as 17 months, you know, repairing an eagle's wing. And
well, Bev, it really is very difficult sometimes for us not to feel a little bitter and cynical when we work so hard and really are able to save so few animals. We have had eagles in here that have stayed as long as 17 months, and it takes us that long sometimes to release one to the wild, and yet an individual in an afternoon can wipe out 2 birds like these. This bird had spent 6 years trying to mature and get to the point that she could join the reproduction pool in Virginia's population, and yet the first year that she was able to reproduce, someone came along and with a poison bait, baited the birds in, disabled them with the poison, and then beat them to death, and simply dumped them out beside the road. When a bald eagle is endangered, the entire system is endangered. And if our environment cannot support the wildlife that are a natural part of it, it's only a matter of time before it can no longer support the human population and the pressures that our society puts on the environment as well. So we really need to look at this not only as some act of benevolence to some helpless creature, but an act of enlightened self-interest.
Teaming with Ed Clark to study the recovery efforts of the bald eagle along the James River National Wildlife Refuge is raptor biologist Dr. Mitchell Bird of the College of William and Mary. Dr. Bird travels the 10 miles along the most important bald eagle staging area in the eastern United States, counting pairs of mature birds that might reproduce. In the entire Chesapeake area, the population had dwindled over time to only 66 breeding pairs in the early 70s, which produced a mere 8 offspring. But along the James River, it was even worse.
And one of the things that was unique about the James was that all breeding bald eagles and ospreys disappeared from the river. It is the only river in Virginia from which all bald eagles, breeding bald eagles and ospreys disappeared. And this occurred in 1973. We did have a major environmental disaster on the river in the early 70s in that a compound called ketone was dumped into the river in large quantities. In 1978, we had our first pair of bald eagles reoccupy the James River as a nesting pair. And as of last summer, this number had increased to 20 breeding pair.
And when we see the eagles disappear, that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's the part we recognize. And yet, before that happens, there is devastation going on all down the food chain to the lowest organisms that are there. The ketone, in fact, was so dangerous in the river that a fishing ban was put in place and advisories issued that it was unsafe for human health for consumption of fish from the James River. And one of the things that came out of it to show that there can be a silver lining to the cloud, when the chemical company, the company responsible for leaking this pesticide into the river, was eventually prosecuted for that pollution, a very unusual thing happened in the federal court system. We have a federal judge here in Virginia that is known for innovation from the bench, and he created a fund that amounts to a foundation called the Virginia Environmental Endowment, and that fund was created with fines that were levied against the chemical company. That endowment now amounts to more than $10 million. And that fund is used to underwrite environmental research, conservation projects, environmental education projects, and it has become sort of a lasting payback, if you will, to the environment for this very terrible transgression that was brought to bear on the James River.
But you know, we can talk about the recovery of bald eagles and the recovery of ospreys, but I think all of these things are going to be very transitory unless we do a great deal more than we're doing now to regulate some of the patterns of growth that we see occurring on the James River and more particularly perhaps on some of the other rivers. There was a recent report issued which suggested by the year 2020 that we could expect about 2.6 million more people in the Chesapeake Bay Basin. And most of those people are going to have very strong desires to live along waterways.
How can development and continued economic growth be compatible with protection of the environment and especially the protection of species like bald eagles? So how is it possible to use the land, to live on the land, but do so without destroying the land's capability to support life? There, I think, are great lessons to be learned from the environment, from nature. Certainly, right behind us, this rookery is here. And this rookery is built on what was the skeleton and hulk of an old barge. And to me, it's very symbolic that the barges really brought the the chemicals, the coal, the man-made materials up that were important parts of the destruction of this river. And yet when the barge was abandoned or ran aground in this shallow area here, nature very quickly, when given the opportunity, took it back to herself, took over. And the trees that you see growing there are ones that were transplanted in from stray seeds or things washing down the river. And now nature has not only reclaimed that barge, but in the very shadow of the chemical company that polluted the river, this barge has turned into a very important breeding site for birds that are, in fact, the harbingers of environmental well-being.
You know, when I'm researching paintings, or like when I'm out in the wilderness or something like that, it's always a treat to see an eagle. We've floated right under one once. But you never get as close to an animal
most people don't.
As you do like this. I mean, this is something you could see all the claws and all the little bumps in his hands.
Well, this is up close and personal.
I know,
for sure.
It really is. I just want to whip out my camera and get a lot of close-up stuff.
Well, that's one of the reasons that he's so valuable to us.
He
He's just so important as a teacher, because just like you, who are very familiar and very tuned into wildlife, are impressed by seeing him, imagine what an impact it has to someone that's never stopped to think about it. Entire ecosystems are very fragile, and we need to look at things in their entirety. We can't just compartmentalize nature and view it as some type of catalog that we'll pick through and order what we want and care for what excites us and ignore that which is not so appealing. We really have to look at it as a complete unit in a functioning system if we're to make any progress at all toward having birds like bald eagles around in the next century. And I know that you all have heard it so many times that it becomes a cliche when people say that it is your generation as you leave college, as you go out into the world and become the decision makers. But in many cases, the decisions are being made that will affect you that you're not even getting a voice in. Some of the things that are going on today are not going to be things that you can decide to undo. When species are gone, it doesn't matter what you think about it 20 years from now.
When you get close to an animal like Hotwire, you begin to personalize their problems and feel a sense of responsibility for what is happening to them. It is important to understand that for them to survive, their extended environments must remain healthy, wherever they migrate. Wildlife also needs travel corridors unhindered by human activity. Huge tracts of land, not a few thousand acres here and there.
Certainly, the opportunity to care for an injured animal and return it to the wild and give it a second chance gives us the optimism and the enthusiasm and the encouragement that perhaps we'll all get a second chance before we're done if we begin to act and act now.
It was a great opportunity to meet Hotwire. I hope that in the years to come he'll be able to bring all this pleasure to others, and maybe we'll see further on down the line how we can really improve our environment and help these birds survive.
The wind clan is my mother, and I feel the wind now. My mother is surrounding me with her love as she accompanies me daily. And as we look upon this land, this canyon is activating the winds to come and to caress all of us with its presence. And no doubt, many of the life forms, there was the eagle flying around. He has charge of all the purifying winds of the universe. The winds symbolizes health, not only physical, but mental, emotional, and spiritual. This is what our life forms had to offer us. The freedom that they feel to fly can only be enjoyed as we respect them, to love them, to appreciate them. And without limitations upon your own freedom, freedom can best be enjoyed as long as we respect the rights of the freedom of others. And what better right does the natural form, the life form, has?
Rights and freedom have seldom been extended to a most feared and misunderstood predator, the wolf, persecuted for years and nearly exterminated. The International Wolf Center in the heart of northern Minnesota's Wolf Range in Ely is working to improve wolf-human relations. Curator Lori Schmidt is in charge of the center's captive wolf pack, which is for display purposes. Lori has worked with these wolves 12 hours a day since they were 10 days old and conducts educational orientations for the public. This state has the healthiest wolf population in the country outside Alaska, estimated around 1,700, and those who support wolf recovery projects are hopeful that a surplus here will enable wolves to further disperse into neighboring Wisconsin and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
I condition the wolves to be submissive. I roll them over in the submissive body posture, and this is how wolves treat their alphas or their dominant animals. Now, I couldn't be a subordinate if I were working in this enclosure because I would be expected to roll over my back like this. So I want to make sure that I always maintain my dominant status.
When a wolf howls, even in a captive pen, the wilderness comes to where you are. That is a sound that may scare some if they don't understand the wolf, but to me, it is inspirational and hauntingly beautiful. Are there still myths, or are they alive and well and still, going strong today?
Unfortunately, children still have that Little Red Riding Hood mentality. They still fear the big bad wolf, and that goes into essentially adulthood. They will grow up with that myth, and they will be directly affecting the life of the wolf because of a myth that they heard as a child. And that's one of our problems, or one of our reasons why we're here, is that we want to show the true nature of the wolf in the wild, the true social structure of the wolves, and we want to try to educate people about the nature, or the shy nature of the wolf.
Also, the wolf is dependent on its prey for food, so there is almost as much study being done on the deer in the area as the wolves. Right.
Dan Grosvenor is the education coordinator at the International Wolf Center, which is hosting a research expedition to learn more about how the wolf utilizes its habitat and what constitutes the internal anatomy of a home range. A wildlife biology class from Northern Michigan University is being assisted by volunteers from Earthwatch, an organization that offers the public an opportunity to get involved with scientific research. Aside from developing personal interest in wolf behavior, their contributions will provide information for wolf recovery projects throughout the United States, as fewer than 100 wolves exist outside Alaska and Minnesota.
For demonstration purposes.
We take them and train them for 1 or 2 days and then set them out in the woods. We have supervision with them, of course, but these people are actually out there involved with the radio tracking of a wolf.
We have our coordinates of 5, 7, 3, 3. Well, we've just taken some bearings on the location of a female timber wolf, an adult female timber wolf, who we've been following for the last 3 years now. What we're trying to find out is just the general areas that these wolves use, and the implications of this work will be useful not only in basic animal behavioral science, but also in establishing places for wolves to live. My concern is, as an ecologist, I view the wolf as a part of a larger community of life that we're all a part of, and that we've lost the wolf from many of these communities, and I think we're the poorer for it.
Strongest signal still a little bit
still there.
angled.
Often, more than just tracking the movements of a particular wolf is called for. Physical examinations are necessary to gather data for various research applications so that the general wolf population can be better served.
I've always been interested, since even before being a teenager, in animals that have to hunt for a living. Down to the other end of the ridge. So we distinguish between whether he's in the swamp or the ridge. When I was offered the opportunity to study wolves, which always has been in my book the sort of the top carnivore in North America, I was really elated.
David Meach is a leading wolf authority researching for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. He has studied wolves for over 30 years and is involved with many significant wolf restoration and study projects. He is currently examining the interaction of wolves and their prey in Alaska and spending half the year actually living with a wolf pack on Canada's Ellesmere Island. This is the first time anyone has accomplished that degree of trust with wolves.
The Ellesmere Island project is entirely different from all the others in that I can live close up with the wolves there, that is within a few feet. And in the pack that I'm following, I know each individual and their history. I've been following them for 6 years. They're helping teach the younger members of the pack where to hunt and how to kill efficiently and make their living, so that those young, as they mature, leave the pack and disperse out, and if they find a mate there, they breed, set up their own territory, have their own litter of pups, and start their own pack. Wolves are social carnivores, that is, they hunt for a living, and they hunt in social groups, generally, and a social group is a family. Very similar to a human family in that there's a pair of adults and then offspring of several different generations. And we call that then the pack. And they roam around a large area in Minnesota, anywhere from 50 to 150 square miles for each pack territory, trying to find enough prey to kill and eat. Now, in that, say, 50 to 150 square miles, there may be as many as 250 to 500 deer. And that's the main prey of the wolf here. And the wolves are circulating around all this large area, trying to find those animals and catch whatever they can and eat, make a living out of it.
Look at that! Look at them go!
We captured 215 about a year ago and put a recapture collar on him, and we've been very interested in his the weight changes that he shows from month to month, his blood values and his hormonal values. And disease titers, and he's a father of we think, of a litter of pups, and so he has a mate, and they have a den probably within a few miles of where we handled 215.
The only way to effectively capture and study a wolf in the wild is to take him down or tranquilize him by remote control dart injection located on the animal's radio collar. David Meach designed the collar.
So we're going to fire the dart now with this. At the end of the 20 double beeps is when the dart fires. That's the fire. Okay, it's signal going to the collar now. There's a point of no return.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Now see how fast it is going? That dart stuck in his neck. He's running. We know that these wolves in this area are affected with a disease called canine parvovirus, and we know that they sometimes carry the antibodies to it, but we don't know for how long, whether antibodies stay up for the whole life of the wolf or whether they vary from month to month.
It's hard to describe what I was feeling as we approached the area where 215 went down. It was an exciting moment. I just didn't know what to expect.
Yes. Oh, it's beautiful. We're going to remove the collar first.
With this particular wolf, one of the things I'm interested in is whether the disease that the animal may have, whether that's something that they can become resistant to, or whether it will affect its pups and therefore have an influence on the whole population. If we can find out these kinds of information, then there may be a way of devising some vaccination program for wolves in critical areas like Wisconsin, where there's perhaps 20 or 30 and they're just barely recovering, or Montana, where there's a similar number and where over a period of the last 10 years they have not really been able to make a comeback. And we think it might be due to this disease. Taking follow-up samples like 20 minutes, 10 minutes later, 20 minutes later, 60, 80, and 90 minutes later to plot.
We were with the wolf for over 3 hours, periodically taking blood, checking teeth, giving antibiotics, and finally weighing him.
So many of our findings have resulted from our persisting with monitoring a population for a long period, filling in the missing pieces of the puzzle, so to speak, and then suddenly finding that by filling them in, we've come up with a finding that might help the wolf elsewhere. Okay, she's going to give it the antidote. It'll start breathing a little faster, and in a couple of minutes, then it probably will start trying to struggle to get up.
Oh, it's just too hard. The antidote began to take effect immediately, but it would be another few hours before the wolf would be alert and feel normal again. I felt he was a trooper, doing his share to help his species survive.
Oh, that's fantastic, just seeing him go off.
Probably the most cogent reason for wanting to restore wolves to areas and to preserve them where they live is because the public wants them. They value the wolf because it belongs in these areas. It's a symbol of the wilderness, and for man and wolf to coexist successfully, we need large areas of wilderness preserved. That's what it's really going to take.
I'm here enjoying the beauty of the Yellowstone National Park. Of all the life forms that are here, the wolf is no longer here. There is an effort to return the wolf to this particular area because the ecosystem cannot be complete without the wolf's presence. I hesitate when I use the word wolf itself because in my tribe we respect that animal so that we do not call him by name. We refer to him as grandfather. May we somehow consider the wolf as part of our ecological effort to provide a place where they can live once again and feel free to live with us.
The importance of returning the wolf to Yellowstone, and there are many reasons why it's important. There are legal reasons and aesthetic reasons and moral reasons, but the argument that I find most satisfying is that if we returned the wolf to Yellowstone, then this would be the only place in the 48 states that had all of the native species that existed when Columbus stepped ashore 499 years ago.
John Varley is the chief of research at Yellowstone, the world's first national park and the largest ecosystem in the temperate zones of the Earth. He oversees hundreds of researchers who are dispersed throughout the park to advance our knowledge of nature's multiple personalities. Here at the Yellowstone Institute, listening to John address an ecology seminar, I realized that entire ecosystems, as well as the animals that inhabit them, have their own requirements of space and protection. A place like this is where everything for me gets put into perspective, where nature's cycle of life plays itself out every day. I've been to Yellowstone before, but never like this trip. I've learned that Yellowstone is not a park with a wall around it. It extends well beyond the park boundaries. It's not isolated. Even a little pond is a thriving habitat for diverse organisms that may migrate to other ecosystems or stay here and respond to global environmental conditions.
Places like Yellowstone, the national parks in general, only have really two commodities to sell. One is inspiration, and the other is education. And this is an example here of one of those very important parts of the ecological equation. And if we had sunshine, if we had soil, water, and fire, then we would have all of the elements that created this kind of landscape. And here we have an example of the water part. of that equation, and this is an amazingly busy place. It's all very quiet and pastoral right now, but if we went and trudged around in that water, then it would just be busy. It would just be, it's teeming with life, with diversity, such an immense mixture of plant and animal life. And it would seem to be confined to just this one little pond, but it's not at all. One is constantly taken aback by how everything is so interconnected. Our bald eagles winter in Northern California. Our white pelicans winter in Texas. Our yellow-headed blackbirds winter in Central America. And wetlands like this are some of the most productive places on Earth. And that's why they're so important to the Earth's life system. We've lost roughly 50% of the wetlands in the United States since 1492, and it's so important that we preserve what we have left, or even recreate what we have already lost.
It is so important to the waterfowl, the migration areas. They need to have some place to.
To the waterfowl, to the tiger salamanders, we shouldn't just draw the line at the popular species like ducks and so forth. I think that we should be concerned about those tiger salamanders out there. Amphibians worldwide are going through an immense decline, and nobody knows why.
Well, they have
even
a role
in pristine,
to play somewhere.
They have a role to play.
Just because we may not know everything there is to know about a particular salamander.
That's right.
He's certainly a part of it.
But the important thing about the decline in amphibians worldwide is that should be signaling us that we're doing something wrong with our nest, which is the globe. And if it's salamanders first, is it us next?
What seems to be foremost of people's minds when they enter Yellowstone is the summer fires of '88, which burned into the fall. Everywhere you go, clusters of forest are separated into random patches of green and black. And at first glance, you might say a terrible, irreparable tragedy has affected half of these 2 million acres in the prime of life. But that is the emotional viewpoint, and not at all the perspective of naturalists like John Varley, even though his first reaction was disbelief.
Bev, when I came through here in the fall of '88, just after the fires had swept through, I didn't even believe myself, despite my scientific training in fire ecology, that this place would come back. This was totally black. It was as black as midnight. But 2 weeks later, in September, the grasses started to regenerate. The following spring, this place turned into a profusion of wildflowers that was the most beautiful in anybody's memory around here, and it just shows us once again. It's another lesson on how nature cannot destroy herself.
So it's basically a good thing then.
Well, I hate to use good and bad. To an ecologist, there is really no good or bad. It just is, and it's sort of a continuum. This fire is so important. It's just as important as the sunshine. It's just as important as water and soil in keeping these landscapes going. And there was no death here. It's just a continuum of life.
No beginning, no end. The eternal continuity of life.
In the circle, as I was speaking my native language, I was expressing to the Great Spirit that we have come here not only for play, not only for amusement, but trying to recapture in the hearts of people a true appreciation of all life forms. And in order to try to bring this about, we set up this circle and allowed people to come and share in our appreciation and also in our asking the Great Spirit to bless us, to bless what we're trying to do here, not only for ourselves in our day-to-day, but for those that follow after us, even for those that's not even born yet, so that there might be truly a better tomorrow.
Marcella's bare-heart spirituality and its genuine love of beauty, animals, and freedom really touched me. We had to be invited into the circle, which is representative of our world, the greater circle, and blessed before entering the sacred hoop, formed with sage. This was a small part of a much more complex tribal ceremony, and it made me feel privileged and thankful and satisfied. At that point, I truly believed and understood that there was a deeper purpose in creating the painting.
A circle is without end, and there's no time element on any part of it. I would like to welcome you into this sacred circle. The sacredness of anything is what we allow it to become. It comes from us. Circle not only reminds us, but brings us closer together. And if we can come together in harmony, harmony is a sense of blending, forgiving, loving, tolerating. And if we could so live that way, then perhaps the whole outlook of our world, which is the greater circle, might be better for all of mankind.
At the end of the day, Bearheart Steve and I took a few minutes to discuss our feelings about the making of the Sacred Circle documentary. It was clear we had all been touched by the events of the day and the sacred prayer in the circle, and we tried to put it in perspective.
It's really broadened me. It's really brought it home to me, and it's become so much more important. This whole project has. It's been a wonderful experience. I'll never forget today.
Bev is depicting something that she feels on canvas. Every stroke is not just a brush stroke, but a heartstring manifested through paint on canvas. And that's why we feel what we feel when we see her paintings. And so what you are doing, you are keeping alive. You may think your canvas is inanimate, but what you put into it speaks for itself. It cries out, look at me with full of life, blending with the landscape.
So Bev has given us the opportunity to examine what the sacred circle means to each one of us. But I think you have given us an example of how to live our lives. So you have given much to us, not only in the circle ceremony today, but just your thoughts and your wisdom on how all the elements of life, how significant they were to you and your people. And perhaps that's the way we should address our future.
Our future is up to us. If we want to have bears, eagles, and wolves in that future, it is for us and our children to decide. How can we describe what an animal in the wild is like if it is not around to see? And how can we know at what cost we have let a species disappear, what it means to medicine, to the earth, to our spirit? Ecosystems like Yellowstone are for everyone to enjoy. The land is for everyone to love. What we do to or for our environment is an essential part of who and what we are, a reflection of ourselves, the motives and standards by which we live. Mother Nature and human nature, a truly delicate balance.
So, what have we learned? Things concerning the cycle of life. We had a circle, and we were inside the circle for a while. The thing that the circle contains is an appreciation and acknowledgement of all the created forces at our command, if we so desire. Our respect for grandfather sun that gives us warmth upon the land, but also into our hearts. And then the moon, not only something that we gauge our seasons with, but it reflects that great light, and it's beautiful. We are here to reflect the beauty of all of life. We have seen the beauty of creation, the trees, grass, the animals, the birds. We saw the rivers as they flow by. They're seeking their own level to become a part of. All of these things, will it be lost in time? While we are still here, can we not appreciate and love the land, the environment, so that when we pass on, we will have left something solid and beautiful for those that's going to follow after us? So it is not a responsibility. If you have love for the environment, then it becomes a privilege to do all that we can to preserve it.
There's a voice that calls to me in soft and tender sound. Open my heart and see there is beauty all around. I sit beside a river and try to touch the clouds and see